The scent of burning sage clung to the evening air, sharp and suffocating. I stood at the edge of the stone circle, my plain white dress whispering against my legs in the autumn breeze. 20 pairs of eyes watched me, their gazes heavy upon my skin. The fertility ritual was our pack's ancient tradition, a ceremony where omegas received blessings before the mating season. For me, it had become a recurring testament to what I could never be. Eleanor, Elder Marer's voice dry as fallen leaves cut through the silence, stepped forward. My heartbeat echoed in my ears as I moved toward the circle's center. The elders formed a solemn perimeter, their expressions ranging from pity to indifference. Behind them the pack watched, though many had already turned their attention elsewhere. Why observe what had already been determined? I was the Barren Omega, after all. My fingers found the small silver pendant at my throat, my mother's final gift before she passed. It depicted a waxing moon. Symbolizing potential, she'd whispered during her last days, even when darkness seems complete, remember, light always returns. For years I'd clung to those words, hoping they might prove true. Elder Mara raised her hands and the murmurs ceased. She approached with a clay bowl of sacred red ochre, the mark each fertile omega received upon their forehead, an invitation for the moon goddess's favor. Eleanor Stone, she announced, her voice carrying across the clearing, we gather as our ancestors did to bestow the blessing of fertility upon our omegas. I kept my eyes on the ground, counting pebbles beneath my bare feet to maintain my composure. 3 years I had stood in this spot. 3 years I had received silent judgment instead of sacred marking. However, Elder Marer continued, her tone shifting into something that prickled along my skin, the moon goddess only blesses those she deems worthy. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Heat rose to my cheeks, but I lifted my chin. I would not show them weakness, not again. Eleanor has been determined barren by our healers, Elder Marer declared, though everyone already knew. The whispers had trailed me through pack lands for years. The condition she bears was confirmed when she came of age. No ritual or prayer can alter what the goddess has decided. My grip tightened around the pendant. Condition. They used softer words now, but the meaning remained. I was incomplete. Lesser. Elder Marer stepped back. You may return to your place, she said, not unkindly, but with a finality that cut deeper than cruelty. As I retreated, movement caught my eye at the clearing's edge. My breath caught as I recognized the broad shoulders and imposing silhouette of King Raphael Blackstone, Alpha of Alphas, ruler of the 7 territories. He stood half-concealed by an ancient oak's shadow, his presence unexpected and unnerving. The Alpha King never attended minor pack rituals. His eyes, amber even from this distance, locked with mine for a fleeting moment. Something passed between us, a current of awareness that raised the hairs on my arms. Then he turned, disappearing into the forest as silently as he'd appeared. The ceremony concluded beneath a darkening sky. Dusk painted long shadows across the forest floor as pack members dispersed toward the celebratory feast, a gathering where blessed omegas would be presented to potential mates. I would not be attending, I never did. Eleanor. I turned to find Leela, my only friend, approaching. The fresh red mark shone vivid against her forehead. Don't say you're sorry, I said preemptively. I wasn't going to, she replied gently. I thought we might skip the feast for the hot springs instead. It's a perfect night for stargazing. A small smile touched my lips. That sounds wonderful. We walked in comfortable silence along the narrow forest path. Night fully descended, the moon rising full and bright above the treetops. Its silvery light filtered through the canopy, painting dappled patterns on the ground below. Did you see him? Leela asked, her voice hushed. The Alpha King, he was watching. I saw, I said, attempting casualness despite the strange flutter in my chest at the memory, though I can't imagine why he'd notice our small ritual. Rumor says he's seeking a mate, Leela offered. Since his queen passed last winter, the council pressures him to secure the bloodline. Well, I said, the words bitter, he won't find what he needs with me. Leela fell silent and I immediately regretted my tone. I'm sorry, today is difficult. I know, she said softly. But a leaner, being barren doesn't define you. There's more to life than bearing children. If only our pack believed that. In our society, an omega's primary value lay in reproduction. Without that ability, I was considered a burden, tolerated only because of my skill as a healer. We reached the hot springs as the moon climbed higher. Steam rose from the water's surface, creating an ethereal mist that swirled in the cool air. The springs were deserted, everyone else at the feast. I slipped from my dress and into the warm water, tension easing as heat enveloped me. Leela joined me, sighing contentedly. Sometimes I think I could stay here forever. I closed my eyes, letting the mineral-rich water soothe tired muscles. If only. We soaked in silence, accompanied only by water's gentle lap and distant owl calls. But as minutes passed, a prickling sensation began at the base of my spine, the feeling of being watched. I opened my eyes, scanning the surrounding trees, shadows and moonlight, nothing more, yet the sensation persisted. Do you feel that? I whispered. Leela frowned. Feel what? Before she could answer, a twig snapped in the darkness. We both stilled, our heightened senses straining. Probably just a deer, Leela said, though her voice lacked conviction. The forest had gone eerily silent, no rustling leaves, no night creatures calling, as if everything held its breath. Then he stepped into the clearing. My heart nearly stopped. The Alpha King stood at the spring's edge, his powerful frame silhouetted against moonlight. He wore only loose black pants, his chest bare and sculpted. Dark hair fell in waves to his shoulders, and his amber eyes gleamed like a predator-s in the dark. Your Majesty, Leela gasped, immediately lowering her gaze as she sank deeper into the water. I should have done the same, shown proper respect, averted my eyes, made myself small as expected of an omega before an alpha of his stature. Instead, I found myself staring, transfixed. He moved closer, his gaze never leaving my face. Leave us, he commanded Leela, his deep voice resonating through the clearing. Leela shot me a panicked look, torn between obedience and loyalty. It's all right, I assured her, though my mouth had gone dry. I'll be fine. After a hesitant moment, Leela climbed out, wrapped herself in her cloak, and disappeared down the path, casting one last worried glance over her shoulder. Once we were alone, the Alpha King approached the spring's edge, movements fluid and predatory. I remained where I was, water lapping at my collarbone. You're the Barren Omega, he said, a statement rather than question. I flinched at the bluntness but met his gaze. I have a name, it's a leaner. Surprise or perhaps amusement flickered across his features. Alphas weren't accustomed to being challenged, especially by omegas. A leaner, he repeated as if testing the name. Do you know who I am? Everyone knows who you are, Your Majesty. King Raphael Blackstone, Alpha of Alphas. He smiled then, a slow, predatory curve of lips that sent a shiver down my spine. And yet you speak as though we're equals. Forgive me if I've offended, I said, though I wasn't sorry. I've never been skilled at pretending to be less than I am. Instead of anger, his smile widened. No, I don't imagine you are. He crouched at the water's edge, bringing his face level with mine. This close, I could see flecks of gold in his amber eyes, could smell his scent, earth, pine, and something wild that stirred my omega instinct despite myself. That's what interests me about you, Aliner. You were rejected today, humiliated before your pack, yet you hold your head high. You don't cower, you don't plead. I swallowed hard. What choice do I have? To break each time I'm reminded of what I lack would be to live in constant despair. His gaze intensified. And what do you believe you lack, little Omega? I cannot bear children. I'm afflicted, he repeated thoughtfully. According to whom? Your elders, your healers. He reached out suddenly, fingers brushing the silver pendant at my throat. The brief contact sent electricity through my veins, or perhaps someone who knew better than any healer what truly lies within you. His touch lingered a moment too long, leaving me speechless, my mind clouded by his proximity. When he withdrew his hand, I felt the loss like a physical ache. You should return to your pack, King Raphael said abruptly, rising to his full height. These woods aren't safe after dark, the dismissal stung. I've walked these forests since childhood, I'm hardly defenseless. A low chuckle escaped him. No, I don't imagine you are. He turned to leave, then paused, glancing back. We'll speak again, Eleanor. It wasn't a request, but a declaration. Before I could respond, he melted into shadows, leaving me alone with my thundering heart and 1,000 unanswered questions. Dawn found me awake, preparing medicines in my small cottage. The familiar sense of dried herbs and tinctures usually brought comfort, but today they did little to calm the turmoil inside me. King Raphael's words echoed relentlessly. Someone who knew better than any healer, a sharp knock startled me from my thoughts. I opened the door to find Leela, her face pale. Eleanor, come quickly, it's Elder Marer. She collapsed during the night. I grabbed my healer's bag and followed her through the village to the elder's cottage. Inside, Elder Marer lay on her bed, breathing shallow, her normally ruddy complexion ashen. What happened? I asked, kneeling beside her and placing a hand on her fevered forehead. She seemed fine at the feast, said another elder, hovering anxiously, but she woke delirious with fever. He paused. She's been asking for you, I frowned. Elder Marer had never particularly liked me, had been vocal about my condition. Why ask for me? The elder's eyes fluttered open as I examined her, recognition flickering across her face. Eleanor, she rasped, barely audible. You came. Of course, I replied, already measuring herbs for fever-reducing tea. I'm the healer. Her hand shot out with surprising strength, gripping my wrist. Not just a healer, she whispered, eyes suddenly clear and piercing. You never were just that. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean? But her lucidity passed as quickly as it came. Her eyes rolled back and she began to convulse. Everyone out, I commanded, my healer's instincts taking over. I need space to work. The next hours blurred as I fought to lower her fever, willow bark tea, cold compresses, fever root poultices. By midday, the crisis passed and she slept peacefully. Exhausted, I sat back on my heels. The cottage had emptied gradually, leaving me alone with my patient and troubled thoughts. Elder Marer's words nagged at me. Not just a healer, you never were just that, you have a gift. I whirled to find King Raphael standing in the doorway, his powerful frame nearly filling the small space. How had he approached so silently? Your Majesty, I acknowledged, too tired for proper surprise. If you've come to see Elder Marer, she's sleeping. I didn't come to see her. His amber eyes fixed on me with that same unnerving intensity. I came to see you. I rose, suddenly conscious of my disheveled appearance, hair falling loose from its braid, dress stained with herbal remedies. Me, why? Instead of answering, he stepped fully inside and closed the door. The small space seemed to shrink with his presence, his scent, that intoxicating blend of earth, pine, and wild power filling my senses. You saved her life, he said, nodding toward Elder Marer, when others would have failed. I shook my head, uncomfortable with praise. I only did what any healer would do. No, his voice was firm. What you did requires more than knowledge. It requires intuition, power, the ability to sense what others cannot. Something in his tone made me wary. Why are you really here, Your Majesty? Our pack has little to offer the Alpha King. A smile curved his lips, though it didn't reach his eyes. Direct as always, little Omega. He moved closer, forcing me to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. I've been watching you for some time, Eleanor Stone. Long before yesterday's ritual, the revelation sent a jolt through me. Watching me, why? Because you're special, he said simply. Because you're not what they believe you to be. My heart stuttered. And what do they believe me to be? Afflicted, barren. His hand reached out, fingers brushing my cheek so lightly I might have imagined it. But I know better. I stepped back, unsettled by his touch and the certainty in his voice. What do you want from me? For a long moment he simply studied me, expression unreadable. Then he withdrew a small object from his pocket, holding it out on his palm. A seed, small, black, and unremarkable save for the faint silvery sheen rippling across its surface in the dim light. "Plant this tonight," he said, voice dropping to a near whisper. "Under the waning moon, water it with 3 drops of your blood." He met my eyes, then wait. I stared at the seed, fascination and apprehension warring within me. What will grow? "The truth," he replied enigmatically. "Plant it, Eleanor, if you wish to understand what you truly are." Before I could question him further, a groan from Elder Merer drew my attention. When I turned back, King Raphael was gone, leaving only the seed behind on the small table by the door. I slipped it into my pocket just as Elder Merer's eyes fluttered open. She looked disoriented, gaze settling on me. "Eleanor," she murmured weakly, "what happened?" "You had a dangerous fever," I explained, helping her sip water, "but it's broken now, you need rest." She frowned, struggling to remember. "I had strange dreams, the Alpha King was here." "Just dreams," I assured her, though my hand moved unconsciously to touch the seed in my pocket. "Fever causes vivid visions." She shook her head slightly. "No, not just now. He was at the ritual yesterday, watching you." Her eyes, still glassy with remnants of fever, fixed on me with disturbing clarity. "He knows, doesn't he, about the prophecy?" A chill ran down my spine. "What prophecy, Elder Merer?" But exhaustion claimed her once more, eyes drifting closed as she slipped back into sleep. I sat beside her for a long time, mind racing with questions without answers. By nightfall, Elder Merer's condition had improved enough for another pack member to watch over her. I returned to my cottage, bone-weary but too restless for sleep. The seed in my pocket seemed to burn against my skin, demanding attention. I placed it on my small wooden table, staring at it in the candlelight. "Plant it under the waning moon, water it with my blood." It sounded like something from old tales, magical and dangerous. What would grow from such planting? Why did the Alpha King believe it would reveal my true nature? The sensible thing would be to destroy it, throw it into the fire, and forget this strange encounter. But curiosity burned within me, stronger than caution. As night deepened, I made my decision. Taking a small clay pot, I filled it with rich soil from my herb garden and carefully placed the seed in the center. Then I pricked my finger with a thorn, allowing 3 drops of blood to fall onto the dark earth. "Grow," I whispered, feeling foolish talking to a seed. "Show me what I need to know." I placed the pot on my windowsill where the waning moon's light fell directly upon it, then went to bed expecting nothing. That night I dreamed of a vast forest unlike any I'd seen. Trees towered impossibly high, trunks wider than houses, foliage creating a cathedral-like canopy above. I walked barefoot through dappled sunlight, following a path that seemed to form beneath my feet. In the forest center stood a massive tree, bark silver-white and gleaming. A small door was set into its trunk, just tall enough to enter without stooping. A voice whispered from within, familiar yet strange. "Come inside, daughter of the moon, it's time you remembered who you are." I reached for the door and woke with a gasp, heart pounding. Sunlight streamed through my window. Disoriented, the dream remained vivid. Then I remembered the seed. I scrambled from bed and rushed to the windowsill. The pot sat exactly where I'd left it, soil undisturbed. But from its center rose a tiny silver shoot, no taller than my little finger, with 2 perfect leaves unfurling toward the light. Impossible. No seed could germinate and sprout overnight. I touched one delicate leaf gently. A jolt of energy surged through me, so powerful it nearly knocked me backward. Images flashed through my mind: a silver forest, a full moon, wolves running beneath its light, and a woman with my face adorned with a crown of starlight. A knock at my door broke the vision. I withdrew my hand from the plant, shaken and confused. Leela stood outside, expression troubled. "Eleanor, the council has called for you." "The council?" I frowned. They rarely interacted with me directly. "Why?" They wouldn't say. She bit her lip nervously. "But Elder Merer is with them, and the Alpha King's guards have arrived in the village." My blood ran cold. His guards, is he with them? No, but they're asking questions about you. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Eleanor, what's going on? Why would the Alpha King's personal guard be interested in you? I shook my head, genuinely bewildered despite my strange encounters. I don't know. As I followed Leela toward the council hall, I couldn't help glancing back at my cottage where the impossible silver seedling reached toward the sun, and wondered if I'd just made a terrible mistake. The council hall stood at our settlement center, its stone walls weathered by countless seasons. As we approached, I noticed an unusual number of pack members gathered outside, expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. At the entrance stood two men I didn't recognize, posture rigid and alert, black uniforms bearing the silver wolf insignia of the Alpha King's personal guard. They assessed me coolly as I approached, gazes lingering on my light hair before stepping aside to let me pass. Their scrutiny followed me into the hall where council members sat in a semicircle, faces grave. Elder Marer was among them, looking remarkably recovered, her sharp eyes tracking my movements. In the room's center stood a man whose bearing marked importance. Tall and broad-shouldered, with silver-streaking dark hair and a scar from temple to jaw, he wore the same uniform as the guards but with additional insignia suggesting higher rank. Eleanor Stone, he announced as I entered, voice echoing in the cavernous space. I am Commander Thorne, head of the Alpha King's Royal Guard. I inclined my head slightly, aware of tension filling the room. Commander, I'm told you've been asking questions about me. A murmur rippled through the council at my directness. Elder Marer's lips thinned in disapproval, but Commander Thorne's expression remained impassive. Indeed, he confirmed, by order of King Raphael, you are to come with me to the capital immediately. The hall erupted in shocked whispers. I stood frozen, unable to process what I just heard. On what grounds? Elder Brennan, our council head, demanded, rising to his feet. Eleanor is a pack member. If she has committed some offense, she has committed no offense, Commander Thorne interrupted. His Majesty's interest is of a personal nature. The implication hung in the air, intensifying whispers. Heat rose to my cheeks from both embarrassment and indignation. Personal nature, I repeated, finding my voice. I don't understand. Commander Thorne's gaze settled on me, assessing. It is not my place to elaborate on His Majesty's intentions. You will learn more when you arrive at the palace. And if I refuse, the words escaped before I could stop them. A tense silence fell. Refusing a direct request from the Alpha King was unheard of, tantamount to treason in some territories. Commander Thorne's expression hardened slightly. That would be unwise. Elder Marer rose then, movement slow but deliberate. A word in private, Commander. She gestured toward a small antechamber off the main hall. After a moment's consideration, he nodded, following her from the room. The instant they were gone, council members erupted in heated discussion. What have you done to draw the Alpha King's attention? The Elder Brennan demanded, fixing me with a suspicious glare. Nothing, I insisted, though the seed in my cottage and strange encounters suggested otherwise. I've barely spoken to him. But you have spoken to him, another council member interjected. When, where? Before I could respond, the antechamber door opened. Elder Marer emerged first, expression unreadable, followed by Commander Thorne, who appeared slightly paler than before. The council will permit Eleanor to accompany you to the capital, Elder Marer announced, her voice carrying finality that silenced all objections. She will depart immediately. I stared at her in disbelief. Don't I have a say in this? Her eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw something there besides disdain, a flicker of what might have been fear or regret. No, child, you don't, not in this. Commander Thorne stepped forward. You will be permitted 1 hour to gather belongings. A carriage awaits. My mind raced, searching for a way out, but as I looked around the hall, I realized with crushing clarity that no one would stand with me against a royal command. Not even Leela, whose eyes were downcast, expression defeated. 1 hour, I agreed, voice hollow. I left the hall in a daze, barely registering curious stares from pack members gathered outside. Leela fell into step beside me once we were out of earshot. I'll help you pack, she offered quietly. I nodded, grateful for her loyalty even as fear knotted my insides. Leela, what's happening? Why would the Alpha King send his guards for me? She shook her head, bewilderment clear. I don't know, but Alina, this could be an opportunity. Life in the capital is different. Omegas there have more freedom, more respect. Or it could be a disaster, I countered, thinking of the strange seed now growing in my cottage. What if he knows something about me, something dangerous? We reached my small dwelling and I pushed open the door with trepidation. The silver seedling on my windowsill had grown noticeably in the short time I'd been gone, stem now as thick as my thumb, leaves broader and more numerous. Leela gasped. What is that? I've never seen a plant like it. A gift, I said hesitantly, from the Alpha King. Her eyes widened. Alina, you can't leave this behind. If it's from him, it must be important. She was right, of course. Whatever this plant was, whatever it might reveal, I couldn't abandon it now. I carefully transplanted it into a smaller pot for transport, then began gathering the few possessions I couldn't bear to leave behind. My mother's pendant, my healer's journal, a small collection of rare herbs. As I packed, I became aware of a strange sensation deep in my abdomen, a warmth pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. I pressed a hand to my stomach, frowning. Are you all right? Leela asked, noticing my discomfort. I'm fine, I assured her, though I wasn't certain. Just nervous, I suppose. We finished packing well before the hour was up, my life's possessions fitting easily into a single canvas bag. I looked around my small cottage, the only home I'd known since my parents died, wondering if I'd ever see it again. I'm scared, Layla, I admitted, voice barely above a whisper. She pulled me into a fierce hug. You're the strongest person I know, Alina. Whatever awaits you in the capital, you'll face it with the same courage you've shown here every day. I wished I shared her confidence. All too soon, a knock signaled my time was up. Commander Thorne stood outside, expression softening slightly when he saw my single bag. Is that all? I nodded, clutching the strap tightly. I travel light. He gestured toward an elegant black carriage waiting on the main path, polished surface gleaming in afternoon sun. The royal emblem, a silver wolf with amber eyes, was emblazoned on its door. Your chariot awaits, he said, a hint of dry humor coloring his tone. I turned to Leela for one last embrace, fighting back tears. Take care of my herbs, I whispered, and yourself. I will, she promised, and you'll send word when you can. As soon as I'm able, I agreed, though I had no idea if that would be possible. Commander Thorne cleared his throat discreetly. We must depart now if we're to reach the capital before nightfall. With a final glance at my cottage, I followed him to the carriage. A small crowd had gathered to witness my departure, expressions ranging from confusion to envy to outright suspicion. Elder Marer stood among them, gaze fixed on me with intensity that made my skin prickle. As I passed her, she reached out suddenly, grasping my wrist. Remember who you are, she whispered so low only I could hear. When the time comes, remember. Before I could ask what she meant, Commander Thorne ushered me into the carriage. The door closed with a solid thunk, and moments later we were in motion, the village rapidly receding behind me. I sat across from Commander Thorne, the small pot containing the silver seedling cradled carefully in my lap. For several miles we traveled in silence, the rhythmic sway of the carriage doing little to calm my frayed nerves. You must have questions, he said finally, breaking the silence. I looked up, studying his weathered face. Dozens, but I doubt you'll answer them. A faint smile touched his lips. Try me. I considered, then decided on the most pressing. Why does the Alpha King want me in the capital? What does he want from me? Commander Thorne's expression remained carefully neutral. His Majesty's reasons are his own, but I can tell you this, you are not the first Omega he has shown interest in, but you are the first he has commanded be brought to him. The statement did nothing to ease my anxiety. "That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be," he replied frankly, "merely informative." I glanced out the window at passing landscape, watching familiar forests give way to rolling hills I'd never seen before. "Has he told you what I am, what he believes I am?" Something flickered in the commander's eyes, surprise perhaps, or weariness. "What makes you ask that? He told me I'm not what my pack believes me to be." I stroked one of the silver leaves, feeling that same jolt of energy, though weaker this time, "that I'm not afflicted." Commander Thorne was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he sighed, shoulders relaxing slightly. "I've served King Raphael for 30 years. I've seen him face enemies that would make most alphas cower. I've never seen him intrigued the way he is by you." "That's not an answer," I pointed out. "No," he agreed. "It's a warning. Whatever game he's playing, whatever he sees in you, be careful. The king is not a man to be trifled with." The rest of our journey passed in relative silence, landscape changing dramatically as we traveled. Forests gave way to vast plains which eventually yielded to the sprawling outskirts of the capital city, Lunaries. I pressed my face to the window, awestruck despite my circumstances. I'd never ventured beyond pack territory before, and the capital was beyond anything I could have imagined. Stone buildings rose several stories high, windows gleaming in late afternoon sun. People of all designations, alphas, betas, omegas, moved through streets with purpose, dressed in clothing far finer than anything in my village. And at the city's center, perched atop the highest hill, stood the royal palace, a massive structure of pale stone and glittering glass, spires reaching toward the sky like fingers grasping for the moon. "It's beautiful," I whispered, unable to contain my wonder. "And dangerous," Commander Thorne added softly. "Beauty often is." Our carriage passed through iron gates twice my height, guarded by soldiers in the same black uniforms. Palace grounds spread before us, immaculate gardens, fountains, and courtyards, all designed to impress and intimidate. It was working. We stopped before a side entrance, less grand than the main gates but still more elaborate than any building in my village. Commander Thorne stepped out first, then extended a hand to help me descend. "Welcome to Moonstone Palace," he said, voice formal once more, "your new home." The words sent a chill through me. This wasn't a visit, then. This was something more permanent. A woman appeared in the doorway, tall and elegant, with steel-gray hair pulled into a severe bun and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Commander," she acknowledged with a nod, "this is the Omega." "Yes, Lady Rosalind, this is Eleanor Stone." She assessed me with a critical eye, taking in my simple clothes and the small pot I clutched protectively. "His Majesty expected you sooner. The council required persuasion." "They did," Commander Thorne confirmed. Lady Rosalind's lips thinned. "I see." "Well, come along then, girl. We must make you presentable before your audience with the king." "Audience," I echoed, a fresh wave of anxiety washing over me. "When?" "Tonight," she replied, already turning to lead the way inside, "at the full moon ceremony." Commander Thorne placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Lady Rosalind is the king's seneschal. She'll see to your needs." "And you?" I asked, suddenly reluctant to part with the only person I knew in this strange place. "I have duties to attend to, but we'll meet again." He hesitated, then added in a lower voice, "Remember what I said, Eleanor, be careful." With that cryptic warning, he left me in Lady Rosalind's capable but intimidating hands. I followed her into the palace, the silver seedling clutched to my chest like a talisman, wondering what fate awaited me in this palace of stone and secrets, and what the Alpha King truly wanted from a supposedly barren Omega who had never been anything special until now. Lady Rosalind led me through a labyrinth of corridors, each more opulent than the last. Marble floors gleamed beneath our feet, and tapestries depicting ancient wolf legends adorned the walls. Servants, mostly betas, bowed respectfully as we passed, curious gazes following me when they thought I wouldn't notice. "Your chambers," Lady Rosalind announced, stopping before an ornately carved wooden door. She pushed it open to reveal a suite easily 4 times the size of my entire cottage. I stepped inside, momentarily speechless. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating a sitting area with plush chairs and a writing desk. Through an archway, I glimpsed a bedroom with the largest bed I'd ever seen, draped in silvery blue silks that shimmered in the light. "This can't be for me," I said, finding my voice at last. "There must be some mistake." Lady Rosalind's expression remained impassive. "His Majesty personally selected these rooms for you. They adjoin the royal gardens." She gestured toward glass doors opening onto a private balcony. "He thought you might appreciate proximity to plant life." Her gaze dropped to the silver seedling in my arms. A flicker of something, curiosity perhaps, or weariness, crossed her features before she composed herself once more. "A bath has been prepared for you," she continued briskly. "Afterward, you will be dressed appropriately for the ceremony. The king expects all his guests to observe proper protocol." "I'm not a guest," I said quietly. "I'm a prisoner." For the first time, Lady Rosalind's stern countenance softened slightly. "No, child, a prisoner would not be given chambers in the royal wing, nor would they be presented at the full moon ceremony as an honored attendee." Before I could respond, she clapped her hands, and 3 young Omega women entered carrying various items: towels, scented oils, a garment bag. "These attendants will help you prepare," Lady Rosalind explained. "I will return when it's time." With that, she swept from the room, leaving me alone with the 3 Omegas, who regarded me with poorly concealed curiosity. "I'm Lily," said the tallest, a slender woman with warm brown skin and kind eyes. "This is Sarah and Ivy. We're to help you get ready for tonight." I placed my seedling carefully on a table near the window where it could catch remaining daylight, then turned to them with a sigh. "I suppose I have little choice in the matter." Lily smiled sympathetically. "The first day is always the hardest, but you'll adjust to palace life sooner than you think." The bath they led me to was more like a small pool set into the floor of an adjoining chamber, filled with steaming, fragrant water. Despite my anxiety, I couldn't help but relax as I sank into its warmth, letting the attendants wash my hair with oils that smelled of jasmine and moonflower. As they worked, they chatted among themselves, occasionally directing questions to me about my village and life there. I answered cautiously, still uncertain of my position and how much I should reveal. "Is it true what they're saying?" Sarah asked eventually, voice dropping to a whisper. "That you're the Omega from the prophecy?" I froze. Elder Marer's feverish words echoed in my mind. What prophecy? The 3 exchanged glances. "You do know," Ivy asked, eyes wide, "the prophecy of the silver wolf." Before they could elaborate, the bathing chamber door opened and Lady Rosalind reappeared. "That's quite enough gossip," she said sharply. "Finish preparing her. The ceremony begins in an hour." The attendants fell silent immediately, focusing on their tasks with renewed diligence. They helped me from the bath and dried me with soft towels, then led me back to the bedroom where they presented me with the contents of the garment bag. I gasped despite myself. The gown was unlike anything I'd ever seen, a flowing creation of silver blue silk that seemed to capture and reflect light, adorned with tiny crystals that mimicked the night sky. Beautiful, ethereal, and utterly intimidating. "I can't wear this," I protested weakly. "You can and you will," Lady Rosalind replied. "The king selected it personally." With the attendant's help, I slipped into the gown, marveling at how perfectly it fit, as though made specifically for me. They arranged my light hair in an elegant twist, adorned with small silver pins shaped like crescent moons, and applied subtle cosmetics to enhance my features. When they finally allowed me to look in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The woman who stared back looked regal, mysterious, nothing like the simple healer I'd always been. "Now you look like what you truly are," Lady Rosalind murmured almost to herself. I turned to her sharply. "And what is that exactly?" She met my gaze steadily. "That is for the king to reveal, not me. A knock at the door interrupted us. Commander Thorne had returned, now dressed in formal attire, a black uniform adorned with silver insignia, a ceremonial sword at his hip. "It's time," he announced, expression grave. I glanced back at my silver seedling, which had grown even more in the short time since our arrival, stem now nearly as thick as my wrist, leaves with a metallic sheen catching fading sunlight. "Should I bring it?" I asked, uncertain. Lady Rosalind shook her head. "It will be safe here. The king has other revelations planned for tonight." I followed Commander Thorne through more corridors, each grander than the last, until we reached a set of massive double doors guarded by royal soldiers. Beyond them, I could hear the murmur of many voices, hundreds perhaps. "The Grand Hall," Commander Thorne explained, "the nobility of all 7 territories have gathered for the full moon ceremony." My heart began to race. "Why am I here? What does the king want with me?" Commander Thorne's expression softened slightly. "Courage, Alina, all will be revealed soon." The doors swung open, and noise from within washed over us like a wave. The Grand Hall was enormous, its ceiling soaring high above, supported by columns carved to resemble ancient trees. Hundreds of people filled the space, dressed in finest attire, their conversations creating a buzzing undercurrent that faltered momentarily as we entered. All eyes turned toward us, toward me, and I fought the urge to flee as Commander Thorne led me forward down a central aisle toward a dais at the hall's far end. Upon it stood 3 thrones, the largest occupied by the man who had turned my life upside down in 2 days. King Raphael Blackstone sat with easy confidence of absolute power, posture relaxed yet commanding. He wore formal attire, black with silver accents, a crown of platinum and obsidian resting on his dark hair. His amber eyes found mine immediately, and the corner of his mouth lifted in a slight smile that sent a shiver down my spine. As we approached the dais, murmurs grew louder. I caught fragments of conversation, the one from the prophecy, "Impossible, she's barren, the Alpha King wouldn't choose." Commander Thorne halted at the dais's foot and bowed deeply. I remained standing, unable to tear my gaze from the Alpha King's. "Your Majesty," Commander Thorne announced formally. "I present Alina Stone as commanded." King Raphael rose from his throne, movements fluid and predatory. The hall fell silent instantly. "Alina," he said, his deep voice carrying effortlessly through the vast space, "welcome to Moonstone Palace." I managed a small curtsy, acutely aware of hundreds of eyes upon me. "Thank you for your hospitality, Your Majesty." A ripple of surprise ran through the assembled nobles at my direct address. The Alpha King, however, merely smiled more broadly. "Come," he said, extending a hand toward me. "Join me." Heart pounding, I ascended the dais steps and placed my hand in his. His skin was warm, his grip gentle but firm, and that same electric current I'd felt at the hot springs coursed through me at his touch. He led me to stand beside his throne, facing the crowd. "Noble lords and ladies of the 7 territories," he announced, voice resonating with authority. "Tonight's full moon ceremony holds special significance. For too long I have ruled alone since my queen's passing. Tonight that changes." My breath caught in my throat as understanding dawned. Surely he couldn't mean, "I present to you Alina Stone," King Raphael continued, his hand still clasping mine. "The Omega spoken of in the ancient prophecy, the silver wolf's mate." Chaos erupted in the hall. Voices rose in shock, disbelief, outrage. A noblewoman near the front, beautiful and regal in crimson gown, stepped forward, face contorted with fury. "This is madness, Your Majesty," she exclaimed. "This common Omega cannot be the one from the prophecy. She's barren, everyone knows it." King Raphael's expression hardened, his grip on my hand tightening slightly. "Lady Victoria, your concerns are noted but misplaced. Alina's true nature has been concealed even from herself until now." "Prove it," Lady Victoria challenged, eyes flashing with defiance. "If she is truly the silver wolf's mate, let her demonstrate the power the prophecy speaks of." A tense silence fell over the hall. King Raphael turned to me, his amber eyes searching mine. "Do you trust me?" he asked quietly, for my ears alone. I hesitated. Did I trust him, this man who had uprooted my life, spoken riddles and half-truths, yet something deep within me, something primal and instinctive, recognized him in a way I couldn't explain. "I don't know you," I whispered back, "but you will," he promised. Then louder, addressing the assembly, "The proof you seek will be provided at moonrise. Until then, let us proceed with the ceremony." He guided me to sit in the smaller throne beside his own, a position of honor that caused another wave of murmurs to sweep through the crowd. As nobles approached the dais one by one to pay respects, I leaned toward the king. "What is this prophecy they speak of?" I demanded under my breath, "and why do you believe I'm part of it?" His eyes never left the approaching nobles, but his voice was clear in my ear. "The prophecy of the silver wolf speaks of an Omega-believed Barren who will bear twins to the Alpha King. Twins who will unite the 7 territories in lasting peace and usher in a new age for our kind." My mind reeled. "But I am Barren, the healers confirmed it years ago." Now he did turn to me, his gaze intense. "The healers were wrong. Or perhaps they lied." Before I could question him further, the sun dipped below the horizon and a hush fell over the assembly. Through the grand hall's high windows, the rising full moon's light began to stream in, bathing the dais in silver radiance. King Raphael stood, drawing me up with him. "The time has come," he announced. "Tonight, under the full moon's light, the truth will be revealed." He led me to the dais's center, where moonlight was strongest, and turned me to face him. "Do you remember the seed I gave you?" I nodded, thinking of the silver plant now growing in my chambers. "What is it?" "A moonflower," he replied, "a rare species that grows only in the presence of those with moon magic in their blood. It responds to you, Eleanor, because you are not what your pack claimed. You are not afflicted or barren. You are a lunar Omega, the last of an ancient line thought extinct." The words meant nothing to me, yet they resonated with something deep within, like the echo of a forgotten song. "I don't understand." "You will." He took both my hands in his. "The full moon reveals what is hidden. Let it show you who you truly are." As moonlight touched our joined hands, a strange sensation began to build within me, a warmth starting in my core and spreading outward, growing in intensity until my skin seemed to glow from within. Gasps arose from the assembled nobles as the light emanating from me grew brighter, silvery, and ethereal. And with the light came knowledge, memories that weren't mine yet somehow were, flowing into my consciousness like water breaking through a dam. I saw ancient forests, rituals performed under moonlight, women with silver in their eyes commanding powers beyond ordinary comprehension. I saw the truth of what I was, what I had always been, though hidden from me. "The silver wolf's mate," I whispered, the words feeling right on my tongue. King Raphael nodded, his amber eyes glowing with an inner light of their own. "My mate, my queen." The warmth in my abdomen intensified, and suddenly I knew with absolute certainty what else had been hidden from me. My hands flew to my stomach where 2 tiny lives had taken root, their existence masked by ancient magic until this moment. "The twins," I gasped, tears filling my eyes. "They're real, they're here." A collective gasp echoed through the hall as my meaning became clear. Lady Victoria stepped back, face pale with shock. Others fell to their knees, overcome by the significance of what they were witnessing. King Raphael, no, Raphael, my mate, placed his hand over mine where it rested on my abdomen, his touch gentle and reverent. "The prophecy fulfills itself," he said, voice thick with emotion. "The rejected Omega, called Barren, carries the Alpha King's twins." "How?" I asked, still struggling to comprehend the magnitude. "How is this possible?" "The lunar Omegas were hunted nearly to extinction centuries ago," Raphael explained, voice low. "Their power, the ability to command moon magic, to heal, to see beyond ordinary sight, was feared by those who didn't understand. Survivors went into hiding, suppressing their abilities, concealing their true nature even from their own children. Understanding dawned. My mother's pendant, I whispered, touching the silver moon at my throat, her words about light returning after darkness. Raphael nodded. She knew what you were, what you would become. She left you that talisman to protect you until the time was right. And the seed, the moonflower, a test, he admitted. Only a lunar omega could make it grow. When I first saw you at the ritual, I sensed what you were. Your power called to mine across the clearing, but I needed to be certain. I thought of Elder Marer's fevered dreams, her cryptic words. She knew, didn't she? Elder Marer, she suspected. Raphael confirmed. There are still those among the old packs who remember ancient ways, who recognized signs when your powers began to manifest, even in small ways. Your healing abilities, your intuition, these were glimpses of your true nature breaking through. Moonlight streaming through windows seemed to intensify, and with it, the glow emanating from my skin. The twins within me, impossibly, miraculously real, pulsed with their own small energies, already connected to moon magic flowing through my veins. What happens now? I asked, overwhelmed by the weight of prophecy and destiny. Raphael's expression softened, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw vulnerability in his amber eyes. That depends on you, Eleanor. The prophecy has been set in motion, but prophecies don't dictate every step of the journey. I would have you as my queen, my mate, the mother of my children, but only if you choose it freely. I studied his face, seeing beyond the Alpha King to the man beneath, a man who had lived with prophecy's burden far longer than I had, who had searched for me not just because destiny demanded it, but because something in him recognized something in me. And if I choose to return to my village, I asked, needing to know my options were truly my own. A shadow crossed his face, but he nodded. Then you would return with my protection and provision for you and the children. I would not force you to stay, Eleanor. That is not the mate bond I seek. His honesty touched something within me, the part that had always felt out of place, that had endured rejection and isolation. The moon reached its zenith, bathing us both in its full radiance. In that perfect silver light, I made my decision. I stepped closer to Raphael, our joined hands still resting over the miracle of our unborn children. I choose to stay, I said softly. Not because of prophecy or destiny, but because something in me recognizes something in you. Because the rejected Omega in me sees the lonely Alpha in you. Relief and joy flooded his features. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against mine in an intimate gesture of connection. My queen, he whispered, my mate. In that moment, with the full moon as our witness and hundreds of nobles looking on in awe, the rejected Omega, once called Barren, now revealed as a lunar queen, sealed her choice not with a kiss but with a shared breath, a promise exchanged in the space between us. Within me, the Alpha King's twins, harbingers of peace and unity for the 7 territories, grew stronger, nurtured by moon magic flowing through their mother's veins, protected by the fierce devotion of their father, destined to bridge worlds long separated by fear and misunderstanding. I was no longer Eleanor Stone, the barren Omega. I was Eleanor Blackstone, the silver wolf's mate, the lunar queen, mother of the future. And for the first time in my life, I was exactly where I belonged. The celebration following the revelation lasted until dawn, but my mind whirled with too many questions to enjoy the festivities. As nobles approached to offer congratulations, some genuine, others clearly forced, I noticed Lady Victoria watching from a distance, her expression calculating. When the hall finally emptied in the early morning hours, Raphael guided me to his private study, a room lined with books and maps, a fire crackling in the hearth. You have questions, he said, pouring 2 cups of tea from a silver pot. Dozens, I admitted, accepting the cup. Starting with how this happened, if I'm truly a lunar Omega with suppressed powers, how did I conceive without knowing? Raphael sat opposite me, his expression serious. The night we met at the hot springs, when our hands touched, something awakened within you. The connection between us triggered the unlocking of your true nature. The twins were conceived in that moment of recognition, though your body's suppressed magic concealed them until the full moon's revelation. I sipped the tea, its warmth doing little to settle my racing thoughts. And my mother. She knew what I was. She was a lunar omega herself, Raphael confirmed gently. One of the last. She hid her nature, married a beta from your pack, and lived quietly. When you were born showing signs of the inheritance, she did what she could to protect you, suppressing your powers, teaching you healing to explain your intuition, giving you the pendant to strengthen your connection to the moon when the time was right. Tears pricked my eyes. All those years feeling different, out of place, she had known why and had done her best to shield me. Why didn't she tell me? To protect you, Raphael said softly. The same reason Elder Marer and others in your pack who suspected said nothing. There are still those who fear lunar omegas, who remember old prejudices. Your mother gave you a normal childhood, as normal as possible under the circumstances. A knock at the door interrupted us. Commander Thorne entered, his expression grim. Your Majesty, my queen, the council demands an audience. They're gathering now in the throne room. Raphael's jaw tightened. They waste no time. They question the validity of the revelation, Commander Thorne said, his eyes flicking to me with what might have been sympathy. Lady Victoria leads them. Of course she does. Raphael stood, offering me his hand. Will you stand with me before them, Eleanor? It won't be pleasant. I placed my hand in his, feeling the now familiar current of connection. I've faced worse than disapproving nobles. The throne room was less crowded than the grand hall had been, but no less intimidating. 24 council members, the most powerful alphas from each territory, stood in a semicircle. Lady Victoria stood at their center. Your Majesty, she began without preamble as we took our seats on the dais. The council has concerns about last night's display. Raphael's voice was dangerously calm. The supposed revelation of this Omega's nature, Lady Victoria clarified, her gaze sweeping over me with undisguised contempt. Many of us question whether what we witnessed was true moon magic or well-rehearsed trickery. A murmur of agreement rippled through the council. You question my mate's authenticity. Raphael's tone could have frozen fire. We question the convenience of it all, another council member, an older alpha with a scar across his cheek, spoke up. A Barren Omega from a minor pack suddenly revealed as a lunar queen just as you need heirs. It strains credulity, Your Majesty. What proof would satisfy you? I asked, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. All eyes turned to me. Lady Victoria's lips curled in a sneer. Lunar Omegas possess specific abilities beyond simple glow-in-the-dark tricks. They can commune with the moon, sense truths hidden to others, heal wounds that would be fatal to normal werefolk. Can you do these things? I don't know, I answered honestly. I've spent my life suppressing whatever abilities I might have. Convenient, she sniffed. Enough. Raphael stood, his alpha power filling the room like pressure before a storm. Eleanor is my mate, carrying my heirs. Her status is not up for debate. With respect, Your Majesty, it is, Lady Victoria countered, though she lowered her eyes slightly. The prophecy is clear. The Silver Wolf's mate will bear twins who unite the territories. But what if the Omega is not truly the one from prophecy? What if the children are not compatible with all bloodlines? The implication hung in the air. She was questioning not just my authenticity, but the parentage of the twins. Before Raphael could respond, before I could fully process the insult, a wave of dizziness washed over me. The room seemed to tilt, colors bleeding together. Voices became distant echoes. Eleanor, Raphael's hand was on my arm, his voice tight with concern. I'm the moon, I whispered, though I didn't know what I meant to say. Through the throne room's high windows, morning sunlight streamed in. But in my mind's eye, I saw the moon, full and brilliant, and heard a voice that was both mine and not mine, ancient and familiar. They challenge what they do not understand, show them the truth. Power surged through me, different from the gentle glow of the previous night. This was sharper, clearer, like moonlight given form. My vision cleared, and I saw not just the council members before me, but their histories woven around them like silver threads. Lady Victoria's thread showed ambition, yes, but also fear of being replaced, of losing influence. The scarred council member's thread revealed loyalty warring with suspicion. Another's showed genuine concern for the kingdom's stability, and I understood this was the lunar Omega's gift, to see not just what people showed, but what they carried within. I rose, Raphael's hand still on my arm. Lady Victoria, I said, my voice carrying a resonance that hadn't been there before. You question my authenticity because you fear what my presence means for your position. Your family has served as advisors to the crown for generations. You worry that a lunar queen with her own sources of wisdom will no longer need your counsel. She paled, taking a step back. I turned to the scarred council member. Lord Carrick, you question because you've been betrayed before by someone who seemed genuine but harbored deception. Your caution comes from old pain, not malice. His eyes widened in shock. One by one, I addressed the council members, speaking to the truths I saw woven around them, their fears, their hopes, their secret motivations. When I finished, silence thicker than any I'd ever heard filled the throne room. Then Lord Carrick stepped forward and went to one knee. "My queen," he said, voice rough with emotion, "forgive my doubt." One by one, the others followed, all except Lady Victoria, who stood frozen, face a mask of conflicting emotions. The council recognizes Eleanor Blackstone as Lunar Queen and mate to our Alpha King, Lord Carrick announced formally. May her reign be long and her children bring the unity foretold. As the council members filed out, Lady Victoria lingered. When we were alone except for Raphael and Commander Thorne, she approached the dais, her proud demeanor finally cracked. "How did you know?" she whispered. "About my father's betrayal, I've told no one." "The moon reveals what is hidden," I said softly, repeating Raphael's words from the night before, not to harm but to understand. She studied me for a long moment, then bowed her head, a real bow, not the perfunctory nod she'd given before. "I will serve faithfully, my queen." "You have my word." When she left, Raphael turned to me, his expression a mixture of awe and concern. "Are you all right?" That was more than I expected so soon. "I'm tired," I admitted, the energy draining away as suddenly as it had come, "but I'm all right." Commander Thorne, who had watched the entire exchange silently, stepped forward. "The council will still need managing. Old prejudices don't vanish overnight, but today was a good start." As Raphael helped me from the throne room, I realized the enormity of what lay ahead. I was no longer just Eleanor, the healer from a small pack. I was a queen, a mate, a mother-to-be, and the last of a line with powers I was only beginning to understand. And somewhere in the palace, a silver moonflower grew, waiting to show me what came next. The days following the council confrontation settled into a strange new rhythm. Palace life was a world apart from my small cottage and herb garden, filled with protocols, appointments, and constant scrutiny. Yet amid the opulence and formality, I found unexpected moments of peace, mostly in the royal gardens where my moonflower now thrived in specially prepared soil. It had grown at an astonishing rate. In just a week it stood as tall as my waist, its silver leaves broad and luminous, buds forming that promised blooms unlike any I'd ever seen. The gardeners treated it with reverence, as if they understood its significance even if they didn't know the full story. "It responds to you," Raphael observed one afternoon as we walked together in the gardens. He had taken to joining me during these daily walks, a quiet hour away from court demands. I touched one of the leaves, feeling the now familiar hum of energy. "It's like it's listening." "Moonflowers are said to be attuned to lunar omegas," he said. "Ancient texts describe them as companions and guides. They bloom under specific phases, revealing different properties." "What will these blooms reveal?" I asked, examining the tightly closed buds. Raphael's expression turned thoughtful. "That depends on you." Moonflowers reflect the inner state of the Omega who tends them. Their first bloom often reveals something essential about her nature or path. Before I could ask more, Commander Thorne approached, his usual brisk pace slowed by the presence of an elderly woman leaning heavily on his arm. She was tiny, withered with age, but her eyes were sharp and clear as they fixed on me. "Your Majesties," Commander Thorne said, "may I present Alara, once healer to your mother, Queen Selene." My breath caught. "You knew my mother?" The old woman's eyes filled with tears. "I did, child. I served her from her arrival at this palace until her passing." She studied my face, her gaze traveling over my features with heartbreaking tenderness. "You have her eyes and her light." Raphael placed a supportive hand at my back. "Alara asked to see you. She has information about your mother's precautions." "Precautions?" I echoed. Alara nodded, accepting the seat Commander Thorne brought for her. "Your mother knew the dangers of being a lunar Omega in a world that had forgotten how to value them. Before she died, she left something for you, a journal and a set of crystals attuned to the moon's phases. She said when the time was right, her daughter would come for them." "Where are they?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Hidden," Alara said. "In the old moon temple, deep in the palace archives, but the way is protected by magic that only responds to lunar energy." Her aged hand reached out, trembling, to touch my arm. "You must retrieve them before the twins are born, child. Your mother believed you would need their guidance." The moon temple, I'd heard whispers of it, an ancient part of the palace sealed generations ago when worship shifted to more conventional forms. According to legend, it was where lunar Omegas once communed directly with the moon, drawing power for healing and protection. "When should I go?" I asked. "Tonight," Alara said firmly. "During the moon's zenith, the barriers will be weakest then." She hesitated, her expression turning grave. "But be warned, the temple has been sealed for a reason. Not all that is ancient is safe." After Alara had been helped back to her quarters, I turned to Raphael. "Did you know about this?" "I knew your mother left something for her heir," he admitted. "But not what or where. The temple has been forbidden since before my reign. My father sealed it after an incident he never discussed." "What kind of incident?" Raphael's expression darkened. "People went in and didn't come out, or came out changed." "The official record says it was structural collapse, but the servants' tales speak of shadows that moved on their own, of voices from empty rooms." A chill ran through me, but beneath the fear, curiosity stirred. This was my heritage, my mother's legacy. I couldn't turn away from it. "I have to go," I said. Raphael studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Then I'm coming with you." Alara said only lunar energy can open the way. "I won't enter the temple itself," he said, "but I'll be at the entrance. You shouldn't face whatever's in there alone." That night, as the moon reached its highest point, we stood before the temple entrance, a simple-looking door of aged wood set into a nondescript section of the palace's lower levels. But as I approached, I felt the energy emanating from it, a low hum that resonated in my bones. "It recognizes you," Raphael murmured, staying several paces back as Alara had instructed. I placed my hands against the wood. It was warm, unlike the stone walls around it. The silver pendant at my throat grew warm too, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. The door opened without a sound, revealing darkness beyond. Taking a deep breath, I stepped through. The darkness inside wasn't complete. Moonlight filtered through high, narrow windows I hadn't noticed from outside, painting silver stripes on the floor. The temple was smaller than I'd imagined, circular with a domed ceiling painted with constellations. At its center stood an altar of pure white stone, and on that altar sat a simple wooden box. But between me and the altar stood something. At first it looked like mist, silver and shifting. Then it resolved into the shape of a woman, tall, regal, with hair like moonlight and eyes that held entire galaxies. She was both there and not there, substantial and ghostly all at once. Daughter of the moon, she said, and her voice was the sound of wind through ancient trees, of water over stones, of silence between heartbeats. You have come for what was left. My mother's gifts, I managed, though my throat was tight. The spirit, for that's what she must have been, nodded. Selene was the last to worship here. She asked me to guard her legacy until her heir was ready. Her gaze swept over me, assessing. The twins grow strong within you, your power awakens. But are you ready for the burden of knowledge? What burden? I asked. To be a lunar omega is to walk between worlds, she said, gliding closer. Her form seemed to shimmer with inner light. To see what others cannot, to heal what others believe broken, to know truths that might shatter weaker minds. Your mother chose to suppress her gifts to protect you. Now you must choose whether to embrace them. I don't understand, I whispered. How can I choose when I don't yet know what they are? The spirit smiled, a gentle expression that held both sorrow and hope. Then let me show you. She raised a hand and the temple walls seemed to dissolve. Suddenly, I wasn't in a small, circular room, but standing under an endless night sky, the moon enormous and close enough to touch. Images flowed around me, a woman with my eyes healing a warrior's mortal wound with moonlight. Another speaking to trees, convincing them to shift their roots away from a village. A third standing between two warring packs, her mere presence forcing a ceasefire. These were your ancestors, the spirit's voice whispered through the visions. Lunar omegas were once the peacekeepers, the healers, the wisdom keepers of our kind, but power breeds fear and fear breeds persecution. The visions shifted, turning dark, temples burning, women fleeing with children in their arms, a decree banning moon witchcraft on pain of death. The knowledge was lost, the line nearly broken, the spirit said. What remains is scattered, hidden, and hunted by those who still fear what they don't understand. The visions faded, leaving me back in the temple, trembling. Your mother's journal contains what she managed to preserve of our ways, the spirit said, gesturing to the box. The crystals will help you focus your growing power, but knowing carries risk. There are those in your court right now who would see lunar magic eradicated completely. They watch you waiting for a misstep. Lady Victoria's face flashed in my mind. What should I do? Learn, the spirit said simply. Grow strong, protect your children, and when the time comes, use your gifts not for power but for healing. That was always our true purpose. She began to fade, her form becoming translucent. One more thing, daughter of the moon, the temple's protection weakens. Others have tried to enter since your mother's time. Some succeeded in taking fragments of knowledge they shouldn't possess. Be wary of shadows that know too much. With those cryptic words, she vanished. I approached the altar and lifted the box. It was lighter than I expected. Opening it, I found a leather-bound journal filled with my mother's elegant handwriting, and 7 crystals, each a different phase of the moon carved from milky stone that seemed to hold light within. As I turned to leave, a cold draft swept through the temple, a draft that shouldn't have existed in this sealed place. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement in the shadows near the door, not the gentle spirit I'd spoken with, but something darker, more malevolent. It retreated as I focused on it, melting into the stone. Heart racing, I hurried back to the entrance where Raphael waited, his expression tight with concern. You were in there a long time, he said, pulling me into a protective embrace once I was through the door. Are you all right? I will be, I said, clutching the box to my chest. But we need to increase the guard on the temple. Something else is in there, and I don't think it's friendly. As we walked back to our chambers, the box held tightly in my arms. I couldn't shake the feeling that retrieving my mother's legacy was only the beginning of the challenges ahead. The spirit's warning echoed in my mind, be wary of shadows that know too much. And in the palace around us, shadows were everywhere. The week following the temple visit passed in a blur of lessons and preparations. Lady Rosalind took charge of my education in court protocol, while Alara, now installed in rooms near mine, began teaching me about my lunar heritage using my mother's journal as a guide. The journal was a revelation. Page after page detailed not just the history of lunar omegas but practical knowledge, which herbs amplified moon magic, how to read the future in the moon's phases, methods for healing that went far beyond my basic herbology. My mother had been meticulous, her notes interspersed with personal observations and fears about the world her daughter would inherit. "She loved you very much," Alara said softly one afternoon as we studied together. "Every entry about you is filled with such hope, such worry." I traced my mother's handwriting describing my first steps. Today, Alina took 3 steps toward the moonlight streaming through her window. She laughed, reaching for the silver beams as if they were solid things. "The connection is strong already. I must be more careful." "She was afraid for me," I said, understanding dawning. "She was afraid of what the world would do to a lunar omega who didn't know how to hide," Alara corrected gently. "The persecutions may have ended officially, but prejudice runs deep. There are still families who tell horror stories about moon witches stealing children or cursing crops." As if to prove her point, incidents began occurring around the palace. Small things at first. My moonflower was found uprooted one morning, though it survived, seemingly unharmed. Then notes began appearing, slipped under my door or left on my dressing table. "Moon magic is an abomination. Your children will be monsters. Leave before you destroy us all." Raphael responded with increasing fury, doubling guards and interrogating staff, but the perpetrator remained elusive. "It has to be someone with palace access," Commander Thorne reported after another note was found. "The security is too tight for an outsider." "Lady Victoria," I suggested wearily. The councilwoman had been outwardly respectful since the throne room confrontation, but her eyes still held cold assessment whenever she looked at me. "Perhaps," Raphael said, though he sounded doubtful, "but this feels cruder than her methods. Victoria prefers political maneuvering, not anonymous threats." The breaking point came during the first territory-wide council since my arrival. Representatives from all 7 regions had gathered, and Raphael had decided to formally present me as his mate and queen-to-be. The ceremony was to be held in the Grand Hall, followed by a banquet. As I prepared with Lily, Sarah, and Ivy's help, a strange lethargy came over me. My limbs felt heavy, my thoughts foggy. "My queen, are you well?" Lily asked, concern in her voice as she noticed my pallor. "Just tired," I murmured, though it was more than fatigue. A coldness had settled in my bones, a feeling of being drained. The ceremony began without incident. I stood beside Raphael as he introduced me to each territory's delegation, exchanging formal greetings. But as the banquet commenced, the fog in my mind thickened. Voices became echoes, lights too bright, scents overwhelming. Then, as dessert was being served, a server approached with a goblet of specially prepared moonberry wine, a traditional offering to a new queen. As he bowed, presenting it, his eyes met mine. They were completely black, no iris, no white, just darkness. Before I could react, Raphael intercepted the goblet, his alpha senses having picked up on something mine had missed. He sniffed the contents, then his face darkened with rage. "Wolfsbane," he growled, so low only those nearby could hear, "enough to kill an ordinary omega." Chaos erupted as guards seized the server, but the man didn't fight. He just smiled, those black eyes fixed on me, and spoke in a voice that wasn't entirely human. "The shadows remember what was stolen. The moon's daughter will pay the price." Then he collapsed, dead before he hit the floor. In the uproar that followed, Raphael had me whisked away to our chambers, Commander Thorne clearing a path through the stunned nobility. Behind us, I heard Lady Victoria's voice rising above the din. "You see, even attempted assassination. She brings danger to this court." Back in our rooms, Alara examined me anxiously. "The wolfsbane was in the air around the goblet, not just in the wine," she confirmed after a careful inspection. "You breathed it in, but your lunar metabolism is fighting it off." A normal Omega would already be in convulsions. What were those eyes? I asked, trembling despite my attempts to stay calm. Ilara's face paled. Shadow-touched, someone has been dabbling in forbidden magic. Raphael paced like a caged wolf. The temple. You said something was in there with you. The spirit warned me about others taking fragments of knowledge, I remembered with dawning horror. She said to be wary of shadows that know too much. Commander Thorne entered, his expression grim. The server's identity is confirmed, Jerk, a palace employee for 20 years, no family, few friends. But here's the strange part, servants say he's been acting oddly for months, muttering to himself, avoiding sunlight. And last week he was seen near the sealed wing that contains the Moon Temple. Someone got to him, Raphael concluded, used him, or something, Ilara whispered. She turned to me, her aged hands gripping mine. Child, you must strengthen your defenses. Your mother's crystals, have you been working with them? A little, I admitted. The crystals had felt overwhelming. Each one resonated with a different aspect of moon magic, and touching them brought floods of sensation and imagery I wasn't ready to process. You need to master them, Ilara said urgently. Starting tonight, the new moon is in 2 days, a time of beginnings and protection magic. We'll create wards around your chambers, around you, around the twins. Raphael stopped pacing, coming to kneel before me. Eleanor, I should never have brought you here. I thought I was protecting you by keeping you close, but this palace is a nest of vipers and worse. I placed a hand on his cheek, feeling the tension in his jaw. You didn't bring me here, Raphael. Fate did, prophecy did, and I chose to stay. I took a deep breath, pushing through the lingering effects of the wolfsbane. But you're right about one thing, I need to be able to protect myself and our children. That night, under Ilara's guidance, I worked with the crystals for the first time in earnest. She arranged them in a circle around me, each in its proper phase position, and guided me through breathing exercises meant to open my channels to lunar energy. At first, nothing happened. Then, as I relaxed into the meditation, a silver light began to glow from the crystals. It wrapped around me, cool and soothing, and I felt the last of the wolfsbane's effects melt away. More than that, I felt connected. To the moon above, yes, but also to something deeper, a current of power that flowed through the world, through me, through the growing lives within me. Good, Ilara murmured. Now picture a barrier around this room, not just physical but magical, something that will alert you to ill intent, that will weaken dark magic. I focused, imagining silver light weaving through the walls, the floor, the ceiling. The crystals brightened in response, their glow pulsing in time with my heartbeat. When I opened my eyes hours later, exhausted but clear-headed, the room felt different, lighter, safer. You've set the wards, Ilara said, satisfaction in her voice. Strong ones for a first attempt, your mother would be proud. But as she gathered the crystals, she paused, frowning at the one representing the dark moon, the phase of secrets and hidden things. It had developed a crack, and through that crack seeped not light but a faint, dark smoke. What is that? I asked, alarmed. Ilara's face went grim. A backlash, the dark magic that touched Jerk, it's aware of you now and it's fighting back. She wrapped the cracked crystal in a black cloth. We'll need to be careful. Magic like this, it doesn't just attack, it corrupts, twists things. And it's clearly been in the palace for a long time, waiting. The implications settled over me like a cold weight. The assassination attempt wasn't just political maneuvering or personal prejudice. Something ancient and malevolent was stirring in Moonstone Palace, and it saw me and my unborn children as a threat to be eliminated. As I lay awake that night, Raphael's protective arm around me, I stared at the ceiling and wondered, had my mother known about this darkness? Had she encountered it during her time here? And the most chilling question of all, was it specifically waiting for a lunar Omega's return? The 2 days leading to the new moon were tense. Palace security tightened further, with Commander Thorne personally vetting every staff member who came near our wing. Raphael canceled all public appearances, citing my health after the unfortunate incident with the wine, a diplomatic understatement if ever there was one. In private, my education accelerated. Ilara pushed me harder than ever, drilling me on lunar lore and basic defensive magic. The cracked dark moon crystal she set aside, replacing it with a simpler moonstone that lacked the specific phase resonance but was safer. The dark moon is a dangerous time for lunar omegas, she explained as we worked. It's when our connection to external power is weakest and when shadow magic is strongest. You must be particularly careful as the moon wanes. What exactly is shadow magic? I asked, remembering the server's black eyes. Ilara's expression turned grave. In the oldest texts, it's called the unmaking magic that doesn't create or transform but unravels. It's the opposite of lunar magic in every way. Where we work with connection and healing, it works with separation and corruption. She hesitated, then added, "There's a reason lunar omegas were once called the light against the dark. We were the natural counter to such forces, which is why whatever's in this palace sees you as a threat." The new moon arrived with an oppressive stillness. The sky, devoid of moonlight, felt like a black velvet blanket smothering the world. Even the palace, usually full of noise and movement, seemed hushed. That evening, as Raphael met with his advisors to discuss the investigation into the assassination attempt, I felt the first twinge. A cramp low in my abdomen, sharp enough to make me gasp. Lily, who was arranging flowers in my sitting room, was at my side instantly. "My queen, what's wrong?" "Just a pain," I managed, pressing a hand to my stomach. But even as I said it, I knew it was more. The twins, usually quiet presences, were restless. I could feel their distress like a second heartbeat. "I'll fetch Ilara," Lily said, already moving toward the door. "And Raphael," I added, fear clawing at my throat. By the time they arrived, the pain had intensified, spreading through my back and down my legs. Ilara took one look at me and began barking orders. "Get her to bed, warm blankets, the healing crystals, not the dark one, the others. What's happening?" Raphael demanded, his face white with fear as he helped me to the bedroom. "Shadow sickness," Ilara said grimly, arranging crystals around me. "Someone is attacking through the twins. It's a favorite tactic against lunar omegas, strike at what they love most." Rage, hot and fierce, flooded Raphael's features. How do we stop it? "I can counter it," I said through gritted teeth, surprising myself. The knowledge rose from somewhere deep, from memories that weren't mine but were part of my inheritance. "But I need moonlight." "It's the new moon," Raphael said helplessly. "There is no moonlight." "Then I'll make some," I said, and the certainty in my voice surprised even me. With Ilara's help, I sat up in bed, the crystals arranged in a circle around me. Closing my eyes, I reached not for the moon in the sky absent tonight, but for the memory of moonlight. For the feel of it on my skin, the silver of it on water, the way it made everything seem possible and magical. I thought of my mother's pendant, warm against my skin, of the moonflower in the garden, leaves silver in the dark, of the temple spirit's gentle glow, of Raphael's eyes which held their own kind of light. Slowly, a glow began in my chest, not the gentle silver of before, but something brighter, fiercer. It spread through me, and as it reached my abdomen where the twins rested, I felt their distress ease. The pain receded, replaced by warmth. The crystals around me began to glow in response, their light filling the room until it was bright as day. "By the goddess," Ilara whispered, reverence in her voice, "she's generating her own moonlight." But the effort was draining me. I could feel my strength ebbing, the light beginning to flicker. "It's not enough," I gasped. "I can't sustain it." Raphael knelt beside the bed, taking my hand. "Take my strength, whatever you need." I shook my head. "It doesn't work like." But as our hands touched, I felt it, a surge of power, different from mine but compatible. Alpha energy, wild and strong, flowing into me and mixing with my lunar magic. The combination was extraordinary. My fading glow reignited, brighter than before, and this time it held steady. Together, we poured that combined energy into the twins, into the protective wards around the room, into the very air of the palace. I felt the shadow magic, cold and slippery, recoil, retreating to whatever dark corner it had crawled from. When it was over, I collapsed against the pillows, exhausted but whole. The twins slept peacefully once more. Raphael still held my hand, his forehead pressed against it. "Never do that again," he murmured, though we both knew that wasn't a promise I could keep. Ilara checked me over, her hands gentle. "The shadow sickness is gone, but the attack confirms our fears. Whatever darkness is here, it's aware of the pregnancy and it's growing bolder. We need to find its source," Raphael said, his voice steel, "before the next attack." "The temple," I said, the realization coming with certainty. "It started when I went to the temple, or maybe it was always there and my presence woke it up." Ilara nodded slowly. "The spirit warned you about others taking fragments of knowledge. What if someone didn't just take knowledge? What if they took something else, something that should have stayed sealed?" A chill that had nothing to do with shadow magic went through me. My mother's journal had mentioned temple relics, objects of power that lunar omegas once used in great workings. Most had been destroyed or lost during the persecutions, but a few. "We need to search the temple properly," I said. "Not just the main chamber, but the lower levels. My mother's journal mentions catacombs." "It's too dangerous," Raphael said immediately, "especially now with you weakened." "It will be more dangerous if we don't," I countered. "That thing attacked our children, Raphael. It will try again. We need to know what we're facing." We argued back and forth, but in the end, Raphael relented on one condition: we go together with a full contingent of guards. And at the first sign of trouble, we leave. The plan was set for 3 nights hence, when the moon would be a slim crescent, weak but present, giving me some power to draw on without being a beacon for whatever lurked below. Those 3 days were the longest of my life. Every shadow seemed darker, every unexpected noise made me jump. The palace, my new home, had become a place of lurking threat. The only comfort was my moonflower, which chose the night before our planned temple expedition to bloom. I was in the garden at dusk when the first bud unfurled. It happened slowly, petals like liquid silver unfolding to reveal a center that glowed with soft light. The scent was extraordinary, like night-blooming jasmine mixed with clean air after rain and something else, something ancient and magical. As I breathed in the fragrance, a vision came. A woman with my face, my mother, but younger, stood in the moon temple, not as it was now but as it had been. Vibrant, alive with silver light and growing things. She placed her hands on the altar and light flowed from her into the stone, sealing something beneath. Not an object, but a presence, a darkness that twisted and fought against her. Then another woman entered, someone I didn't recognize, with hungry eyes. She watched from the shadows as my mother worked, waiting until she was finished and had left before approaching the altar herself. With tools that glowed with unpleasant green light, she chipped away at the seal, just enough to let a trickle of that darkness out. She captured it in a vial that smoked and hissed, then fled. The vision shifted, the same woman, older now, moving through palace corridors with the vial. She entered a room I recognized, Lady Victoria's family wing, but this was decades ago, judging by the furnishings. She hid the vial behind a loose stone in the fireplace, then turned, and for the first time I saw her face clearly. It was Lady Victoria's grandmother. The vision faded, leaving me trembling in the garden, the moonflower's glow the only light in the gathering dark. Now I knew. The shadow magic wasn't some ancient evil randomly awakened. It had been stolen deliberately generations ago, and it had been in the palace, in Lady Victoria's family's possession, all along. But to what end? And did Lady Victoria herself know what her grandmother had done? More importantly, if the seal had been weakened decades ago, how much of the darkness had already escaped? And what would it take to seal it again, permanently this time? As I hurried back to find Raphael, the moonflower's petals began to close, its bloom lasting only minutes. But it had given me what I needed: knowledge. The battle for Moonstone Palace, for my family, for the future, was just beginning. And it was a battle that started not with me, but with choices made generations before I was born. Choices I would now have to undo, or watch everything I loved be consumed by shadows. If you believe in fate, loyalty, and love, then don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next part. Comment below, are you Team Alpha, Team Luna, or both? Until next time, stay fierce, stay loyal.